Rebecca, yes, I was.
Sorry, Sarah? Yep. Okay.
I was just going to say that I won't be able to come in person today for the hearings, but I was planning to be online.
You did mention that to me, I think, already, Sarah, so thank you.
Yes, sorry.
No, that's all good.
Right, yeah.
Thank you. All right, we'll start this. Yeah, I'm amazed. Not everybody has turned up for this exciting topic. Lloyd, thank you. Session is being live streamed, just so you know, and also we start hearings at 10:30, so we will want to finish this session well before 10:30.
Got it. Good morning, councillors, and thank you for coming in this morning. Today we want to just walk you through, if you like, the KPIs that we've are proposing to be part of the next LTP. As part of every LTP, we go back and review our KPIs in relation to the strategic hierarchy which you put in place in relation to outcomes and priorities and so on. And we go through that and we look at that and look at the suite of KPIs we have, look at them for alignment and appropriateness, and also make any improvement to KPIs that we've actually identified over the last period. Back in the last LTP in 2021, we did an extensive review of the KPI framework. At that stage, we had about 300 external-facing KPIs, which was a pretty big bucket, I have to say. We downsized those to 95, and we've basically come back with a similar number of KPIs across our key activity areas this year. There has, however, been some fine-tuning going on in there, and we're looking to expand, not just introduce new KPIs where they need to be, but also look at refining the existing ones so they tell a better performance story, and also some of them will be relating to giving us better data as we go. You know, as we go through LTPs, we're always upgrading, developing, extending the data sets we have in relation to the performance of the organisation, and so therefore we update and develop the KPIs which sort of sit around that as well. So the slides I think you've had now as a chance to read. I don't propose to go through all of those slides one by one with you. You've I think got a longish day today anyway, but we're happy to take any particular questions you might have on those KPIs. And with that, I'll hand over and ask some questions, unless Jocelyn or Baz, you have anything else you wish to add?
Yeah, I would like to add that we've got 3 sets of performance measures. We've got our service delivery KPIs. We have a series of impact KPIs which talk to our strategic priorities, and then we also have a suite of outcome indicators which talk into our community outcomes. Thank you.
So I believe that, so the KPIs have been emailed to councillors. Is that correct?
They have, and they've all included in the slides as well, which were sent out.
Okay, and what is the, can we just, when was the email sent and who from? Just so people might want to take a 5-minute break to have a look at them and a refresh.
It was sent by DEM Services, I think it was earlier this week on Monday. Yeah.
Okay.
We can actually do a high-level presentation.
Should we do that?
Yeah.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I think because of hearings, people have been focusing on reading submissions, but prior to hearings, so it might mean other emails get a little bit lost.
Yep.
Understand. So perhaps if we just quickly go through them, I'll pass through the introductory slides and go, if you like, to the key slides themselves. Just in terms of the coverage of the KPIs, you'll see there the sorts of dimensions which they're looking at. And we've developed those this time. We've expanded the range of dimensions, performance dimensions, which they cover. And the aim of that is to continuously improve our our analysis and view of performance, so you get a comprehensive view of performance themselves. I'll just make the point too, there is also within our KPI set, there's a suite of KPIs which relate to Wellington Water, and a number of those are not set by us, they're set by DIA. And at this stage, I think I'm right in saying, Jocelyn, they've remained unchanged.
Yes, they have. There's been two that's changed, which is to do with the water quality from Te Mauta Arawai. So the previous ones have been replaced. The rest of them remain as is. There's 25 in total for Wellington Water, and 20 of those are DIA mandatory. At the moment, we're waiting advice from DIA in terms of the nature of the KPIs and its targets.
So just going through that, there's a slide there which just simply gives you a bit of a comparison in terms of the numbers of KPIs that we had in the last LTP and what we've got now, how they relate to each activity area, how they relate and how they relate to the outcome indicators as well. That just gives you a bit of a high level assessment of the change. The actual volume of KPIs hasn't changed as such. It's more the fine-tuning of them, the development of them, and making sure they actually give a more comprehensive perspective of the performance that we report in the quarterly report. Remembering the KPIs are the external KPIs, external-facing KPIs. So they're the ones that we'd also report in our annual report, and they're also the ones that we cover in quite detail in our quarterly report as well. So that's the relevance of those two. Those are what are called the accountability KPIs themselves. I see one councillor has a question. Is that right?
Many thanks for this. Regarding the Wellington Water KPIs,
yeah.
What's the point of these? Because I recall Wellington Water said that they weren't willing to take any KPIs from us to actually have any KPIs. So what's the point of us having them if we can't control what they do?
In our letter of expectation that we sent to Wellington Water, so this comes from all 6 shareholder councils, there's an expectation that they do develop a performance framework and KPIs for operational performance. So there is an action on them to do that.
But they've been ignoring everything we asked them so far, so why would they be considered, would they even consider the importance of these KPIs?
So I think that's probably a question for the Wellington Water Committee. That's the committee that Wellington Water is accountable to. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Great. I mean, I agree having them, but what's the point when someone doesn't listen to you? Okay.
Sorry, I missed that. Let's move on. Well, from Wellington Water, I think it's important that we have this conversation with them directly. All right.
Just flicking through the KPIs now in terms of the governance ones, and Jocelyn's been deeply involved in the review of these, so I'll just get her to give some overall comments of each activity area as we go through anything that she's picked up as she's gone along as well.
Yep. So in terms of the review process, we had 18 review meetings with Tier 3 managers and subject matter experts across the business. So we had a good comprehensive review of the suite of KPIs, and what we've got as a result of that is a far more nuanced set. We believe that we can report in a much better space. When we go through, in terms of the different strat activity areas, in terms of the governance area, we've got 2 that are refined to give us a better idea about how people feel about our services and our decision making. We've got a new social media based KPI that's talking in terms of our channel reach. So we've got a better idea of the what's happening out in the resident space. If we move over to nature and climate, that's the new strat activity area that was environment previously. This incorporates our waste, and also the Wellington Water KPIs. We've got a new waste KPI which relates to percentage of contamination in our curbside recycle collection. Should give us an idea of how our residents are taking the advice around recycling. I'll skip over the Wellington Water KPIs. I don't think we need to talk about those, unless you do. Okay, fine. So, as I said, there are 25 of them, and 20 of those are DIA mandated. So we don't have any choice in those 20. They're framed with targets. They're set by DIA.
Yeah, but just use your mic because there's so many people on.
Use my mic. So if we want additional ones, I mean, the reason I ask is that I've looked carefully at the water care reports which come out, which I find extremely informative relative to what we get in Wellington. But so if I did want to come back with suggestions, I could do that?
We would certainly have a look at them, yes.
Oh, okay, great. Okay,
yep.
Thanks very much.
We do have 2 Wellington Water SOI indicators in our impact space. So as we go through, I can identify those. They come directly out of Wellington Water's new SOI.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yep. So we'll go past that.
So the KPIs would need to be connected. I mean, because we can't just sort of set a KPI that's not connected to
service.
Yeah.
Service.
Yep. So yeah, we would.
Yes, they would need to exist within the performance framework, and we need to have a line of attribution across the course to see what they're measuring and so on, whether it be at a service level or whatever else. That's kind of basic requirements of a good KPI.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Councillor Chung?
Yes.
Just a question on one of these. The average drinking water consumption per resident per day. What does that actually mean? That one of their KPIs is that they supply 365 litres per day.
No, that's the target. So it's what the average consumption is per person across our city. This is a DIA mandated KPI.
I don't understand what that means, though. That we expect them to drink that much, or we offer them that much?
That's average consumption.
Yeah.
We shower on drinking water.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it would be related to trying to reduce the average water consumption.
You need to have an understanding of how much water is being consumed, where it's being consumed across the city, and in what way. And this is a high-level measure, admittedly, but that measure is trying to give us a better understanding of how residents are consuming water.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Young, did you have a question?
So I'm just interested to know how that 365 litres compares to, say, the average, average consumption in, say, Auckland or other places where they have meters.
Okay, so the target, as I said, is set by DIA, so that's a national target. And then in terms of consumption, we consume more on average than other entities across the country. So we've been reporting this in our quarterly report. Yep. Currently, I think we're kind of about 405 litres. Yep. So we are significantly higher.
Councillor Abdurrahman?
Cool. Just following up from what Councillor Chang asked, and you responded, how you want to know in the KPI where the water is getting used mostly. Is that the KPI by DIA, or is it something that we're setting up?
Are you saying that we need another KPI?
No, is the one he just asked and you responded to it? Is that DIA?
That's a DIA measure.
It's a DIA
yes.
measure, yes.
Yep.
Okay,
Sorry.
yep. Just I want to different type.
Yep.
Councillor Chung?
Just to show that I was listening yesterday, we had a submitter come in, and I can't remember his name or their names, but they said that the consumption of water in Wellington has actually been steadily dropping or decreasing since 2000 or something.
I think we're going outside of the KPIs, Councillor.
Yeah, but does that... But I'm just wondering, if they're constantly dropping, and it does have relevance to the KPI, if they're constantly dropping now, does our this figure that we actually have, does our KPI actually also drop?
It's a national figure, which has been explained.
Yeah, so the target is a national target, but if you would like, I can provide you the data for that particular KPI over whatever period you'd like. I could do 10 years if you like.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Rogers.
Yeah, mine was just a clarification on that DIA drinking water consumption. Was that including leak, or was that excluding leak?
No, leaks are a separate. Separate.
Cool, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, great, that's fine, cool, that's fine. Economic and cultural activity area, that includes reader. Those KPIs have been reviewed and reset.
Just a note on there too, you'll notice it talks about economic and cultural, and to some extent this helps us move away from that somewhat artificial distinction we've had in the past between cultural and economic. We know a lot of our services have both economic and cultural impacts, and so bringing this together is recognising that.
Yep.
Just a quick, for my understanding, process question. When you do set up those things, do you discuss with the chair of the committees and setting up those KPIs, or you just set it up and then bring it for a discussion? I just want to understand.
They're done in association with our CCO group in the economic development area, and they're done in association with READER. These are established KPIs. These have been here before, and what we've done is we've looked at the targets.
Just to be clear, I haven't had any conversation with the team about the KPIs. This is an internal piece of work that comes to us. And
yeah, that's correct. And this is the first time that we're sharing this with all elected members.
Yeah, I was about to say that. I didn't know that powerful.
I would never do that to you.
And this is
Actually, my question was not that. What I was asking is, as the chair of the Economic and Cultural Committee, me and Terry, if we were consulted, but would they say that's not the process, so understood, moved on.
Yeah, this is a normal part of the LTP development process and so on. Yep, yep.
Great. Okay then.
Yeah, no, Councillor O'Neill, go. It might help us with our understanding of.
My part is around, so it's noting when there's new and existing KPIs. Have there been any KPIs that we are not including as a part of this process that we did last long-term plan, say on projects that have wrapped up? And is there a way to have visibility over those?
Yeah. So we've got, I think it's 21 KPIs that we're not taking forward for various reasons, and I can provide you a list of those if you wish.
And I think just to clarify, it probably was said earlier, but I think to build all our understanding, that the KPIs will be decided by the LTP committee on the 30th of May.
Yeah.
Yeah, alongside all of the other things we have to decide on the 30th of May.
It's so we can build a comprehensive long-term plan document that goes to audit, and this is kind of the final piece.
KPIs have been passed by Audit New Zealand already. They've had a look. They did require some additional information. We've provided that, and we've not had any further feedback. So at the moment, they're okay with Audit New Zealand.
Also, I'll make the point where a KPI is either changed or dropped. There's not necessarily one reason why that happens. It'll depend on the KPI itself. It may be we need to change it because we now have better data, which tells us a better story. So therefore, the KPI that we had in the past is not actually telling the story in relation to the data we have. It might be the service dimension has changed, or we have just a better understanding of the service dimension that we're measuring, and therefore we can find a KPI which better tells the story around that. So it depends on the KPI in terms of what we're changing and how we're changing. Is not sort of one size fits all.
So that's, I don't know if you can, okay, thank you. Does that mean if it's already audited, councillors will have the right to amend and add or whatever it is? Does that mean we'll take for auditor again, or this is a kind of procedure where we just have to...
There is a formal audit stage after the deliberations, and so it's going to committee on the 30th. You have the ability to make an amendment, and it will be picked up by audit and reviewed after that.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, though, in terms of amending, some of these targets could have funding implications, so you'd need some advice in terms of if you wanted to increase something, let's say from 80 to 90% satisfaction, that would have funding implications in order to achieve those sorts of things.
I would just like to encourage councillors and Councillor Brown, if you're listening, because I know you had an interest, that if you did want to, first of all, I wouldn't encourage people to intervene on these KPIs. I think we have a lot of decisions that we already need to focus on. But if you did want to do that, I would get in there early and seek some advice next week. And because, as we've said, many of these are mandated, many of these are long existing, they're kind of deeply embedded in kind of processes organisationally. So approach with caution, but get in there very early if you do want to have a look. Councillor Chung, did you have a question?
Yes, thanks. Regarding the percentage of people who feel safe in the CBD, we have 91% during the day and 60% after dark. Is that the target or is that the actual feedback?
No, that's the target.
That's the target. So how has that actually changed over time?
That's a new KPI.
Oh, okay, great, thank you.
And I think just on that point, councillors, yes, if you do wish to make a change or so on, one thing you might want to bear in mind is that if you make a change to a KPI, it doesn't follow that you therefore have the data sitting in behind it because you're changing the KPI. So that means you may actually have an extended period up to a year where you're actually not getting a good report on the KPI because you're building the data sets in behind it. So that's a really important consideration for you to think about. It's just because you have a KPI, it doesn't follow that you automatically have all the data to sit there. You've actually got to go out and collect it and develop it and have the systems and processes in place there. So that's a really important consideration to have in place when you're thinking about changing them.
And I would also, that these KPIs actually are flowing out of decisions and policies and strategies we've already made. So we should view them in that context. They're not sitting as just a thing. Yeah. They are part of all of the existing decisions and policies and strategies.
I was just going to add that there's two things. One, the KPI, and secondly, the target. And if you're going to change the KPI, you kind of follow what Lloyd just said, but if you change the target, that has implications for achievability, the funding required to achieve those sorts of things. So, yeah, I think if there are things that councillors have an interest in, definitely come and talk to us.
Can I just respond to the target? Also, the target is in essence a levels of service decision, and in essence, you've already done the consultation. And if you want to make changes to levels of service, you actually have to go out and consult. So it's worth reflecting on that. So it's not easy to make changes, but if you have an interest, come and have a conversation. That's probably the best advice.
Can I just check, because I don't remember us ever amending a KPI in the last LTP.
No, because in essence they reflect.
Yeah.
And they tend to be stable over quite a long time.
Yeah. It's very, very unusual.
Yeah. Councillor Chung.
Yeah.
Okay, back to these targets here. Would it be feasible to actually set a 100% target on these things? Because it seems to me that if we set a target of 60% of people feeling unsafe in the city after dark, I mean, I would like to see 100% there, because isn't that our aspiration to actually make everyone feel safe in the city, or to let everyone be safe? I mean, why would we have 60%? That means half of all the people in town feel unsafe.
Okay, I can speak to that one.
I was just going to lead off. Councillor Chung, if you made those all 100%, you'd have a lot of red in the quarterly reports, because that's probably just not achievable. And when these targets are set, there is some assessment made of actual performance right now.
Yes,
because setting them just at 100%, I get what you're saying, but you've got to have a kind of a real world view of what our current performance is, because otherwise we're just setting ourselves up for failure.
And also there's a key performance element in here. There's underpinning data for these targets, as we've already explained, and that particular one in terms of safety at night, there's already been an assessment done through the residents monitoring survey to find out what the current satisfaction levels are, or safety levels are, and the targets reflect that. If we had 100% targets, we would have no performance stretch.
Sorry, you didn't know?
If we had 100% targets, it would be saying that we've got what elements of performance stretch would we have in there? We're saying that we're perfect. No organisation is perfect, so we're wanting to set realistic targets that we can actually demonstrate that we're increasing and improving our performance.
I guess I'm a little uncomfortable with that because nobody's perfect apart from my colleague over there. But
we all think you were looking at us, Ray.
But I think that having a target of 60%, I'd be ashamed of having that target because I don't want people to think that if they walk out at night, you've got a 40% chance of feeling unsafe. I think that's not very aspirational.
I think to achieve and exceed that.
I think, Councillor, we are setting targets related to the world as it currently is,
yes,
and how we can improve the world as it currently is. So it doesn't mean that as a council, as an organisation, as councillors, we are accepting, for example, that there should be any level of lack of safety. It means that we, in a scientific way, are looking to take steps to improve the safety that we can measure and monitor.
Councillor, one of the key drivers of setting a good KPI is they must be challenging but achievable. And setting it at 100% is probably demonstrably unachievable unless you pour a lot of money, as Baz has indicated, in behind it and change the levels of service. Now, the challenging bit is around having a stretch so we see the behaviour change, and that's the key part of setting a KPI, that they need to be challenging but achievable, but not unachievable. And setting something at 100%, for which we know we would not achieve right from the start, is rather pointless.
But doesn't that...
I think we've got more KPIs to get through.
Yeah.
I understand your concerns, Councillor, and I do think maybe a conversation would be better to have back, but let's keep going and go through the KPIs that we have, and then we see if we've got time to come back.
Okay, I'd like to continue this later.
Yep, sure. In terms of social and recreation, most of the existing KPIs have gone forward with some slight changes in targets. We've got a change in terms of our regulatory-based KPIs. They now sit a new strategic area called regulatory and compliance. We've got some more nuanced KPIs around the building consent space and the LIM space. We've also got some new transport KPIs we're looking at in terms of people's satisfaction with regards to the condition of the roads, walking on footpaths, and satisfaction with cycling. We've also got new parking KPIs, which is looking at a reduction in parking infringement appeals. So, yep, that's our service delivery suite of KPIs.
Councillor Abdurrahman has a question.
If you can go back a bit to the social and recreation one. So I'm going to ask similar question to what I asked, but with examples. Example is the leisure card, where I moved an amendment to increase the parking in Newtown area and Berhampur for low-income earners to get discounts through the leisure card. That means that's going to increase people who will be using that leisure cards. And this KPI, it's saying the target is 28%, right? What that means, if that amendment become applicable, which increase the target into another level, and will have funding consequences, as Stephen says, and what kind of leverage do, as a councillor, we have to change that once we pass this, which can be referred to saying that, no, the target is this, we cannot apply this amendment because of what you have passed on the long-term plan. Is that?
Yeah. I think on the 30th, one of the things that we need to do is any amendments or resolutions that are passed that had implications for the KPIs, then we would need to think about that, right? So let's just say in your example that, an amendment might drive an increase in the utilisation of leisure cards, then we would obviously review that KPI.
And I just want to emphasise, I've never heard anybody say that amendment, advice on that amendment, it wouldn't be reflected in the KPI, so therefore that amendment, it sort of doesn't work that way. That in terms of the amendment that you made may impact the performance of the KPI and we might want to adjust the target.
Yeah, you might adjust it in 12 months once you'd seen the pattern, right? But you would have to be on fairly solid ground to adjust the KPI based on a resolution that you hadn't seen play out yet. But anyway, those are things that we can consider.
Sorry, Councillor Pennant.
Thank you. Sorry, could you just go to the transport one again? Sorry, it flicked through quite quickly. Do we still have one that says that whether people are happy with the level of parking?
We've not had one.
We have in the past. That's excellent that that's been removed. I'm very appreciative.
No, it hasn't been.
It's gone for a while.
That's right.
So I guess I think it is important and to note this, and we were going to talk about it at the end, but councillors who don't recall the email hasn't been sent to us yet, and is my understanding, and that's absolutely fine. We have had a lot to do with regards to the LTP in the last couple of weeks. So after the session, the email will be sent to us.
Yes, so apologies for that. There was a miscommunication. So we understood it had gone on Monday, but it hasn't. So that's made this meeting slightly more difficult than anticipated.
So my apologies for the confusion as well.
Yeah.
So
just on that, if anyone wants to have a conversation offline with either me, Lloyd, or Jocelyn, we're happy to have that conversation. We're happy to do that. If you have further questions, you can also email them through as well. We'd be happy to.
And I just want to emphasise what great city councillors we are for reading all of our emails, because we would have all read this had we received it. Councillor Free, you have a question online?
Yeah, no. Thank you for offering the opportunity to have a bit more discussion, because there has been a lot happening and I haven't really given this the focus I'd like to. But I think I'm picking up a little bit on the point Ray made. We can have a lot of information about KPIs for water, but how does that translate into Wellington Water delivering on them, and how can we actually be responsible for what happens? Sorry, but it might be a conversation for offline.
I think we have covered it already and acknowledged the difficulty inherent in this, which is not just related to our KPI, but more generally the kind of
and
the
also my reception. Sorry.
All good, Sarah. So we have Siobhan. Do you want to make a quick comment while Sarah can hear?
I can. So this is an issue related to the fact that we're one of 6 shareholding councils that own Wellington Water. So I guess if you think about our level of influence, it's 1/6. And it really relies on the other shareholding councils also placing the same demands as we do on Wellington Water. And to date, they haven't. So that's what I was saying to Councillor Chung, that it's really a question for the Water Committee, because that is who Wellington Water ultimately is accountable to.
And acknowledging that's the current model, which may change.
Yeah. Okay.
Do we want to? Sorry, Jocelyn. Do we want to?
I thought there was a conversation about that.
Just for questions now.
Thank you. Have we gone through all of the KPIs?
We've gone through the service delivery KPIs.
Okay.
Yes.
Councillor Chung.
Okay. Regarding this resident satisfaction with cycling, these figures here seem quite confusing to me, because on bike lanes in the central city, people say 25%. We have a target of 25% satisfaction. On streets without bike lanes, 15%. Why would that be lower? I mean, wouldn't they both arguably be the same, because we want to hit the same level of satisfaction?
I would think we would want people to be more satisfied when there was a bike lane there wasn't a bike lane.
Why wouldn't these figures be the same? Because
one street doesn't have a bike lane?
I know, yes, I realise that, but it doesn't matter whether there's a bike lane or not. We're looking at the satisfaction levels. And so why would we be satisfied with 15% on streets without cycle lanes?
Because the people who are cycling would experience greater satisfaction if there was infrastructure for them to use.
Oh, so this is aimed at the cyclists. It's not aimed
Yes.
at what people think of the streets.
It's the resident satisfaction with cycling, who cycle.
So the people who don't cycle, they wouldn't come into the survey. Is that right?
Yes.
Sorry, Ray. I mean, it's like they ask everyone in this room, some of whom cycle and some don't. Are you satisfied with streets which have, with the cycling facilities on streets without cycle lanes? And then they ask them the same question except with cycle lanes. And it turns out that people are more satisfied with the cycling where there are cycle lanes than on streets where there isn't. That's what this information is showing us.
Yeah, it's a different service offering that we're providing for different parts of the city, right? So that's ultimately what it comes down to, is that the cycle lanes, you've got different infrastructure and a high level of service for cyclists. And that's what we're trying to capture in the data here. So,
again, it seems like these figures they seem to me to be quite low, and I think that it may be aspirational, but I would actually like to sort of aim at higher figures for satisfaction for things. I mean, whether it's cycling or whether it's crime in the city, I think we've got to aim a lot higher.
And again, you need to sort of then think about whether that's achievable or not, because at the end of the day, if it's not achievable in the current context, you're just going to be reporting a whole lot of things which are unachievable, and that's not going to help you in terms of monitoring the performance.
I think, Councillor, the offer has already been made to continue this kind of conversation, which is essentially the same point as before, offline. Were there non-service level KPIs to discuss?
what I think might be useful is it's quite hard to consume the information on the go and ask and answer questions. So this performance framework will be part of the committee papers on the 30th. So what I suggest that if you've now got the presentation, or you would at least have it within the next hour. If you've got questions in the meantime, come and have a chat to us. Obviously, we can ask and answer questions as part of the meeting on the 30th as well. There's the ability to go through the pre-questions before the committee, and so put them in there. Officers can have answer them through that process as well, and I think that's probably the mechanism to deal with most of the material in this presentation.
I'd just like to make one point though. If you, for example, were of the view that you wanted to increase the satisfaction with bike lanes, just using that as an example in Central City, then you could mount the argument, if you wanted a higher level of satisfaction, you're going to need a higher level of investment in that network. So, I think you just need to think about that relationship between levels of service and satisfaction. And I think what we've got here is reflecting, in effect, the current investment in that sort of network.
Yeah, so when you read the email with the KPIs, you're reading them with the context of the decisions that we've already made and are continuing to make. So these KPIs do not sit outside investments, policies, strategies and decisions we've made. So that's the context in which you should read them. I'm interested. Look, this is a different side of Councillor Chung that I am seeing. Hardcore cycling advocate.
I definitely think we want to have 100% as our target for cycle satisfaction. Definitely.
I do think maybe this session. My apologies that I was not fully prepared for this session, and because we've had such a busy week with LTP. So I think maybe we should take a break. Put an end to the session now, but the staff are here if you have any general questions to have until we come back at 10:30 when we start hearings, or get a cup of tea if you don't have questions. Yes, and take a photo with the pink.
Rebecca, can I ask one more?
Yes, I suppose.
Yeah. It's just in relation to the transport, which has long been a passion of mine. Have we ever had a metric for how safe people feel in their local neighbourhood walking? and not just the footpaths, but actually the crossing the road and the traffic, because we are putting a lot of money into making slower speeds and, having slower speeds and more build outs and curb crossings and what have you. Would we ever put in a metric like that?
We do have a new KPI, which is satisfaction with walking on footpaths, both in Central City and in the suburbs.
Could we actually also just make that a bit more broad to say perception of safety rather than satisfaction with the footpaths, because it's all related to safety, perception of safety when walking.
I'm not, sorry, Sarah, in order to do that, it's possible, but we need to have baseline data for this, and our perception and satisfaction based KPIs are run through our residents monitoring survey that was done this year. In order to get a new KPI in that, we would need to have a look at that for next year. So it's
okay.
Yep.
I think it's worth putting a lot of money into it. Anyway, my fault.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Sorry, we are going to put an end to the session now. Thank you.